presents to you Honest Talk.
Hello folks, we are so glad to announce that today Mahavir Sharma is going to join us. Mahavir Sharma, a serial entrepreneur, is part of umpteen businesses and social organizations and exudes passion in idea and early stage angel investing, leadership and mentoring. Mr. Sharma is the current chairman of TIE Global Board of Trustees, a first Asian to achieve that position. He is also the chairman of TIE's new initiative for investing in idea and early stage startups across the India, the TIE India Angels, and also the chairman and co-founder of Rajasthan Angels for the last 6 years. A prolific speaker who has had the honor of being the chairman of the Carpet Export Promotion Council CEPC under the aegis of the Ministry of Textiles, Government of India, and the privilege in the past to have been on TIE Global Board for 7 years, during which has chaired various committees and initiatives, including being the vice chair for the year 2019. In addition to being an active angel investor, he is also in the business of carpets, jewelry, marketing and branding in a career spanning 30 plus years, and in his philanthropic activities has been supporting the performing and visual arts of Rajasthan by leading in many non-profit initiatives for the last over 2 decades. So let's begin our talk with Mahavir Sharma.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us. We are extremely very happy to have you for today's talk.
Sure. Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is Self-Reliant India, the bounds of vocal for local. At a time when the world is suffering from a deadly pandemic, India plans to convert this crisis into an opportunity and strengthen its fight by becoming a Atmanirbhar or self-reliant. The term was coined by the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, during his address to the nation on May 12, 2020. He called his campaign as Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, Self-Reliant India Movement. He also defined his 5 pillars of Atmanirbhar Bharat: economy, infrastructure, system, demography, and demand. He stressed upon the fact that it is the time to become vocal for our local. So, sir, I would like to raise it. My first question, which comes here, is how India can become self-reliant.
India can and has to become self-reliant. It already is moving in that direction. I think our infrastructure, which is not just roads and highways, but IT, has to improve. Our conditions, in terms of processes and ease of doing business has to improve. The government has to make it very quick and very smooth, both working, opening, shutting, moving of goods and products. I think, and then we as entrepreneurs, we need to innovate. We need to bring in best practices in terms of production, in terms of quality, in terms of timely delivery, in terms of paying our taxes, both direct and indirect, and becoming part of the system. If we work collaboratively with the government and the government puts in our taxes to best use in terms of infrastructure, I think India has a potential. And then it varies from sector to sector. Technology is different, pharmaceuticals is different, textiles is different, other products like toys, furniture, handicrafts, etc. So it's, sector-wise initiatives are required. But I personally feel that India has the potential, India has the young labor, the young force, India has the education, the democracy, the knowledge, laws in place. It just has to improve by 20-30%, and I think we should be able to get very, very self-reliant and fulfill the dream that our government has seen.
All right, sir, you have covered many things. I think it will be much fruitful for our viewers too. So, sir, moving to my next question, because we generally we have seen that this pandemic has majorly affected the migrant worker. So, sir, do you believe will this self-reliant India scheme bring relief to migrant workers during this COVID-19 pandemic?
See, I don't know if it. The government has worked on a direct relief by way of anaj and grains and food for these people in times of transit, or the state governments have worked very closely once they have reached their villages. There is 2-3 things that need to be done, which I think many state governments and government of India are doing. One is upskilling. So while they are waiting, their skills need to be improved. They need to go grow and add lots of additional skills to whatever they have. One. Secondly, they need to become self-reliant, and if they can work close to their homes as possible, in cities close to their homes, great. Even if they have to go to larger cities just far away, I think it's okay and it's a workable model. And I think entrepreneurs and industrialists and corporates have now realized the importance and value of these migrant labor, which come to commercial cities and commercial enterprises to deliver what is absolutely required by way of production, quality control, efficiency, and without being fully operational or fully employed. These people as contractual laborers most of the time, they have provided great value to the economy, and I think they should be respected more than anything else. Once there is respect, I think money, skilling, education, transition from one city to the other will follow.
All right, sir. Again, it was a wonderful answer. Indian investors need to play a greater role in providing funds to domestic startups, said by Piyush Goyal, Commerce and Industry Minister, on 20th July. So, sir, what would you like to comment on it?
See, the Indian entrepreneurs, the Indian government has to work with the Indian enterprises, the MSME, the micro units, the small units. And if they don't work, if they don't give business locally, it will be very difficult for the economy. So the economy depends on micro and small sector. It does not depend on the large sector. The large sector feeds from micro, small and medium sector, and it's very, very critical that they are given work, they are given business, they make profit, they are sustainable, they employ more people, local and local industries. So I think it's a chain reaction, and I think what Mr. Goyal is referring to is that unless we strengthen our bottom of the pyramid, the smaller units, the micro units, India will not grow as an economy unless they become stronger, they become taxpayers, they become quality product suppliers. India or any country will not be able to grow.
All right, sir. Indian investors, one question which I would like to raise it here, sir. What will be the role of Indian investors and startups in this self-reliant India movement?
So Indian startups are already, they were already investing heavily into India. Matter of fact, the world is investing into startups in India. I think Indian startups have a great opportunity, a great, I think our young students, young startups that I have seen, so many of them, thousands have been registered at DPIIT on the Startup India portal. Many are, working in tier 3, tier 4 cities also. I think India has a great startup potential. Angel investors, VCs, funds, PE funds are all investing into startups that are coming out of India. India, just with or without the ban on other countries' apps, has a great potential and can grow. And I think India is a big consumer market also. So Indian startups don't have to go out of the country to make money or to prove the fact that their technology is the best. So I think Indian investors, foreign investors, are all looking at startups in India. They have seen the potential that technology startups in India have, the potential that the Indian market has for these startups, and penetration has just begun. I mean, we haven't even penetrated in the rural India. I mean, 40-45% Indian mobile phones are smart. So we have such a huge market to cater to, or go fintech, for health, for hygiene, for agri-tech. India's rural outreach, India's small city outreach is so huge that investors will continue to invest in startups that are investing into ideas and solutions that are working for India.
All right, sir. Yesterday, when I was reading about you, it's really interesting profile yours. So, sir, I was found that you have experienced so much in this field. So, one question, sir, I would like to put it here is, sir, it's my request to you, sir. Please give little emphasis on all these 5 pillars of self-reliant movement: economy, infrastructure, demography, and demand. How will it benefit?
See, self-reliance, we've already spoken about. Once we have the infrastructure and skilled labor, technology and investments will follow. I think that is not an issue. Demand in India, if the product is right, if the price is right, if quality is good, India has a huge population. India has a huge market. India has access to countries with bilateral trade agreements where we can reach out to. So I think that demand is not an issue at all. The other 3 pillars were demographics. What were the other 2?
Sir, economy, infrastructure, system, demography, and demand.
Yeah, so infrastructure, as I said earlier, is a critical thing. I think India needs to strengthen that and work on it. And I would imagine the government is already working on it, but it will improve it further. Demographics are in India's favor. India is very rightly placed with its bilateral agreements with the largest markets, Europe and America. India is very strategically placed with developing countries in South America, in Africa, in CIS countries. I think India has a huge potential demographically. It's located very conveniently. It's connected to the world. English or communication and technology, both we are savvy. We have the energy. So I think everything works in favor. And in all sectors that I have been, I think creativity, I think ability to create quality products and compete with the world, being price conscious and competitive, I think has worked. As startups also, we continue to grow. Startups are bootstrapping, working despite COVID situation, and growing and surviving. So I think all of this is great in all these pillars. And I think, as I said, collectively, the government, entrepreneurs, the workforce, both skilled and unskilled, and technology and non-tech work together. I think India has a great potential, and I see that in all spheres of business.
All right, sir. Even yesterday I was collecting the question for this session. One question which is common in all the platform, and I think I should put it here because you are joining us today. So the question was, will this self-reliant movement or policy, is it going to affect the globalization?
See, I'll tell you, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, when we had the industrial policy where steel or cars or big infrastructural organizations like SAIL and Indian Oil and Bharat Petroleum, and then Indian Railways, everything was created, and Hindustan Motors and Tata Motors and whatnot. So from then to now, self-reliance does not take you, it makes you stronger. It adds to collaboration at a later point. See, if you're just importing technology under the garb of globalization, it doesn't do well for the economy, because ultimately the fiscal deficit, the deficit on exports and imports, all that is also very, very critical, because your currency valuation, your salaries and pay scales and GDP, all these are very, very important. I think unless a country is strong internally, it would not be able to partner, it would not be able to grow from where it is. So I think India has to, so this is a great policy, and it will lead to globalization, and far stronger globalization. I mean, simply a human body, a human mind, unless you are strong from within, you will not be able to pull be part of a tug of war where 10 people are pulling whatever is required to be done. So you have to be strong from within to partner with others. I mean, if you are weak from within, globalization will not help you. You will just become handicapped. So it doesn't. So this is a core thing: strong base, strong inner strength, strong country like India will lead to globalization and help in globalization for sure.
All right, sir. So can we conclude that this pandemic will it be an opportunity for all the startups?
It is an opportunity. I think for anyone to think that this is a threat is absolutely not. Is totally un-entrepreneur-like. I think I personally feel that every problem, every situation, every crisis makes us stronger, makes us create new things, and I think that's where I see this as. And I have evolved. I have seen startups getting evolved and pivot. I think every situation has created so much of strength and positivity that I think it should be going forward. We will be far resilient, far stronger, far pandemic proof, and I think we will contribute a lot to the economy of the country, economy of the world, and I think we will be a major player come a few years from now.
All right, sir. One question which also I would like to put it here is, sir, as the time is tough, of course, many startups are facing challenges. So, sir, what advice will you like to give to them? How they have to see this?
I've been saying it all along. If you're facing challenges, most likely cash flow challenges, you have to cut down on your overheads. You have to cut down on unnecessary expenditure. If you are in a domain which is struggling, cut down on unnecessary staff. And even if there is important team members that you don't want to let go, or they should not be going, I would offer them deferred payments. I would offer them ESOPs. I would offer them other means so that they stay, because team is very, very. Also, stay out of. Reduce your capital or operating cost as much as you can. Bootstrap. Continue to pivot and change in how you can become useful in this time, despite your domain not being what it should be. And if you are in a sector which is doing well or needs to grow, I would work harder. Money is available, fundraising is not difficult, and you can grow from where you are to a stronger startup. And I think it's absolutely your choice. But there's no reason why you wouldn't want to fight, adapt, and move forward.
All right, sir, you have mentioned very right point that we have to fight and move ahead. So, sir, I don't want to waste too much time. Moving to my last question, sir. As this time, we have seen many organizations and companies started reducing their team size and removing people from their jobs. So, sir, what would you like to comment on it, and how do you look at it?
See, each company is different. Each thought process is different, and this was expected. I mean, companies will have to cut down on bottom line is far more important than the top line. And companies that were overfunded, had surplus funds, had hired people, thinking that they want to increase numbers, outreach, and top lines, have just realized that funding will not come. They have to live with these funds. The valuation will be lower. It's better to cut down. So they will have to cut down on employees, but it doesn't matter. I feel a person who has been laid off will get opportunities to work and grow together, and that is what I think is required. It doesn't matter, you will get opportunities in some certain other sectors. So where hospitality and tourism, let's say, is laying off people, health, education, and other sectors are hiring. So an experienced person or an able person is always going to find a job. It's not a very difficult thing, or he or she might just become an entrepreneur. You never know, because these things, tough times create great entrepreneurs, and that could possibly be the case also.
So we can conclude that now the skills are going to matter.
Absolutely, skills, resilience, ability to innovate and adapt are going to matter.
All right, sir. You have covered so many things. I think it will be much fruitful for viewers, those who are seeing this interview. So thank you so much for joining and giving your important time. It was really a great session with you. I have learned so much from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Harsh. Bye.
Thank you.